Have you ever tried to play Russian Roulette with a fully loaded gun? It's pretty fun, actually, when you're the one who loaded it with blanks. What's even more fun is when you mime dying from the gunshot with blood packs in a convincing act of dying. I regrettably inform you that it is not so much fun when someone actually dies, and that's what I'm going to tell you about today. My friends and I were all around the age of 25, 26, and this game had become a regular facet of Friday nights along with beer, potato chips, and immaturity. Well, that last one is always going to be a given, right? Anyways, the night in question, we were all doing pretty much the same thing we did every Friday we met at my place. Drinking beer in the basement while playing darts. At the crime scene, I know that some of your boys would be curiously questioning the large holes in the wall nowhere near the dartboard. Well, that can be explained by drunk guys raging after a humiliating loss, as well as that one time we used lawn darts instead of the proper ones. The funniest part was when my friend Job taped a picture of the dartboard onto the wall and told Cam that that was the right place to throw. Oh, don't give me that look. I'm sure that you did things just as stupid when you were that age. What are you, 60? Ooh, I offended you. Wait, are you fucking serious, dude? You're only 30? Wow, this job must screw with you worse than a hunting trip with Dick Cheney. Fine, I'll tell you more about the night that shit went bad. So, like I said before, it was the same as any other night, except that someone, I think it might have been Carrie, had brought an extra case of beer. Carrie sometimes hung out with us when her boyfriend asked her to, and this was one of those times. So by the time I suggested the game, we were all pretty blitzed, which meant that no one really remembered that the game would do a total mindfuck to you. This was Carrie's first time playing the game, and so she was apprehensive, of course. I volunteered to go first, because, well, what can I say? I'm an asshole through and through. As soon as the gun fired, I activated the blood pack, and I guess that put Carrie over the edge. I remember her screaming while the others laughed, and they kept laughing as she yanked the gun from my grasp and began firing at all of them. No one fell, at least until she reached into her purse and pulled out a 9mm snub-nose. I remember each shot echoing, sounding isolated and extremely loud in the small basement. Joey fell first, followed by Job and Jean. I decided that if I was going to have any chances living, that I would stay dead. Paul went next, and I'll never forget what happened to Cam, her boyfriend. She fired at him over and over until the clip was exhausted, all the while screaming at him in some sort of fucked up gibberish. Still screaming, Carrie threw down the gun and took off through one of the windows, and when the coast was clear, I sat up and looked around. I've never been one to cry under normal circumstances, but I was drunk, and the whole thing was so messed up I curled in the fetal position and cried like a baby who was just hit with a hammer. So, you think you're pretty smart there, dirtbag. Did you know about Miss Weller's prior condition? What do you mean, prior condition? Never mind. Tell me what happened next. I finally calmed down after about 10 minutes, and when that was done, I found a phone and called the police. They showed up and cuffed me, and I woke up in here. Seriously, I didn't do anything wrong. You have to let me go. That's a pretty weak argument, shitbag. I was thinking of the events all over again, and having that shithead investigator grill me about something I didn't do was starting to break my nerve. Fine, you caught me. Congratulations. I did everything. I killed my friends and Carrie, but I did have enough time to chop her into little pieces and flush them down the toilet. Shut up, you can't even lie well. How about this? We bring in Carrie's parents to confront you and you can tell them the same load of shit you just told me and see how they react. Fine. Bring it on.
I sat in the interrogation cell for a long time before I heard the door unlock and looked over to see Carrie's parents walk in, her mother crying and father looking at me with sympathy? What the hell? I had known them since I had first met their daughter in high school, and they were actually pretty chill parents, once you got past all the nagging and shitty excuses. I remember looking past them at the door, where the guard had just locked the door. Her parents flanked me on the bench, each giving me a look of pity.
I understand, son. You didn't really do anything wrong. You can trust us. Just tell us what happened.
Yes, Liam. We've known you for so long, and know you would never do anything to hurt anyone.
Yeah, sure, I guess.
Look, we know about your game and the stupid prank, okay? I don't judge you for anything, and I know my husband doesn't either. Just tell us what happened.
Okay, so you know about the game. I want to know why Carrie would go so batshit crazy after I pulled the trigger, and why she would shoot everyone.
Motherfucker.
What did I do? I thought you weren't going to judge me.
I mean about Carrie. That little bitch has one hell of a messed up mind when she hears loud noises.
My gaze sharpened as I tried to figure out even the most simple of explanations for what I had just heard.
Look, Carrie was molested as a little kid, and we didn't know anything about it until she told us right in front of who did it to her. The asshole flipped out and pulled a gun and started firing randomly at her. We were shocked when Carrie got the look on her face and went for him. She got the gun out of his hands and began shooting him until the clip was empty. The whole time she was killing him, her face remained stony with no emotion, even after we wrestled the gun out of her hands. My husband called the police and they came, just taking our statements. By the time they showed up, Carrie began to cry and was putting on a really good show for the responding officer. He gave her a hug, and she looked at us over her shoulder and got that same look again from earlier. The officer released Carrie and thanked us for our statements, turning and walking out the door.
I had been thinking about all of this as Carrie's mom told it to me, and then I asked if the gun was a 9mm snub nose.
How did you know that?
It was black, right?
Yes. Now answer my question.
That was what she killed our friends with. I was released from prison late that night after Carrie's parents explained everything to the cops. I was cold as I walked out of the doors, and shivered a little. I wasn't shivering from the cold, but from the knowledge that I would have to go home to where that shitstorm happened. After paying for the cab, I walked up to my front door and unlocked it, and just stood there at the threshold. I had come this far, but I wasn't ready to walk inside. I stood out there for about 20 minutes, and that was when the cold was too much and I gave up and walked in. The house was still light, as the CSIs hadn't bothered to turn out the lights when they left. I walked to the small kitchen and opened the freezer, where I kept a bottle of emergency vodka in reserve at the very back. I turned on the TV and began to play a few video games in between gulps of therapeutic, ice-cold Grey Goose. I kept failing, and I looked over to where the bottle was and saw it was empty. I couldn't play Super Mario Brothers when I was shit-faced, something I had known for a long-ass time before this. I was so numbed by everything that had happened, I didn't even realize that I had polished off the bottle. I stood up and tripped over a chair and went sprawling. My head was now facing the kitchen, where in the back there was a door that led to the basement. Now in a drunken stupor, I had nearly forgotten about the earlier tragedy and decided to investigate. I couldn't help but notice a trail of blood that led from the door, but at the time, I could remember that usually happened after the game had finished, as fake blood usually dripped off of me as I went to the kitchen to get cleaned up. I sauntered down the steps, clinging to the handrail as I didn't want to fall if I slipped in the blood. Everything rushed back to me with comic timing when I looked over to the rec room and saw the bodies of my friends laying there. I collapsed and screamed, continuing until my throat was raw. I looked around the room with wild, bloodshot eyes and tried to scream again when I saw the corpses begin to shuffle oddly. The only sound that escaped my throat was a weak, strangled squeak. The corpses stood awkwardly in unison, raising their arms and beginning to dance around the room. I could hear a woman laughing as my friends circled faster and faster, their feet not even touching the floor now. I could hear the voice of Cam in my head as I watched him swirl by. "Hey, wanna play some darts?" I heard something whiz by my ear and clatter on the floor. A lawn dart had skittered to the other side of the room and I tried to scream again. I remember the last thing I saw in slow motion. The corpses all fell to the floor, the one closest to me becoming entangled with my legs. I tried to back away in shock until I saw the strings. I looked around again and saw that someone had affixed strings to every part of the corpses so that they could dance. I saw something out of the corner of my eye, and before I knew it was Carrie, it was too late. I closed my eyes as I felt the cold barrel of a handgun pressed against my temple.